I don't know. I wasn't as horrified by the headlines when Mike delivered them.
Yes.
That's because I have a more happy, upbeat tone about it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the end of the world, but you'll be smiling the whole way.
That's right.
When things are wrong, I'll be by your side. Even when you want to cry.
Stop it. Welcome to the Naked Apple.
I have returned.
Mike is back, and he's just raring, chomping at the bit
To punt a porg.
pork. Yep, pork punting.
I don't know what that is.
Pork
but I like
punting.
it.
It's much like clubbing seals, except legal. Almost got him.
Bunny golf. Going for some bunny golf.
Splendid. Well, I hope you had a good time, Mike. I know a certain wildebeest did not have as good a time as you did.
It was quick for him.
It was a quick bit of fun.
So quick he didn't even bleed.
Whoa.
Whoa. Yes.
One shot straight through the heart, 200 yards. Perfect.
Outside of that, we might get more into...
Second shot almost took him in the head, but I missed. So it's fine. It was still one shot, one kill.
It doesn't count. But still 100%.
Except for all the shots that didn't count. It was one shot.
Every time I hit, it counts perfectly.
You hit 100% of the shots you take.
If only that's how golfing scoring worked.
If only.
It does the way I play.
So, yeah. I'm sure a review of Mike's frivolities in a nation that pretends to be first world will be heard shortly in some way, shape, or form.
It was interesting. It was an interesting trip. Really made me happy I live where I do.
Good.
It was South Africa, right?
Yes.
You went to?
Yeah. Yep. Johannesburg.
Like I said, a nation that pretends to be first world.
I mean, they have electricity.
They pretend
They
to be
have
their first world.
They have internet of a kind.
It was like 1 megabit, right?
It was dial up. Yeah.
Yes.
Dial up running through Wi-Fi.
I don't think dial-up can get to 1 megabit.
Ow.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we had got to 1 megabit, but that was the lowest that the speed tests would register. So that's what we. For most of the time I was there, I couldn't even access my email because the internet was so slow.
So the speed test was basically, we recognize that you have a connection because you're on the site, obviously.
Yes.
Outside
Basically.
of that, we don't know how you have a connection.
That was essentially it, yes. Yeah, it was great. It was great.
Man, and I complain about my mobile speeds. Couldn't imagine.
Yeah, that made like 1X look like freaking rocket fuel, man. It was awesome. So much fun. It was cool to disconnect for a week though. It was fun. But
Good.
yeah, well, I think it's some time for some vitamins.
It is time for vitamins to replenish yourself after
It's
being in such a place.
Yeah,
Let's hear the headlines that are totally real and are not fake and are not just a joke.
definitely not a joke of any kind.
Not a joke.
I'm not kidding. Welcome to your vitamin B.
Oh, Sekayo.
We have some news for you today.
I like news.
Most of us do.
Most of us do.
That's why we listen to it.
Ah, yes.
First on the docket, AOC proposes nationwide ban on straws after learning Trump won straw poll.
That sounds like something she would do.
It really, really does, and that's very, very sad. In other news, Tucker Carlson reveals startling footage of who was actually behind January 6th. And it is shocking, to say the least.
I'm at the edge of my seat.
I can barely hold on.
It can be clearly seen in this new footage that former First Lady, New York Senator, Secretary of State, and failed presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, wearing a furry buffalo horned hat, stirred the assembled protesters up into an angry mob before prompting them into the Capitol.
I knew it.
Yelling things like, "Get in there, you deplorables!"
Yeah!
Yeah! Yep. That's how it happened.
I called it.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Speaking of stories, Jimmy Kimmel runs tonight's jokes by President Z for approval. We have a tremendous round of hilarious jokes for you. Oh, most excellent Z.
Gotta get that Winnie Jinping approval.
Winnie Jinping. Winnie Jinping. On another note, very serious news for you today.
Somber? Is it
Somber. It's a somber occasion.
Somber.
Man makes sure windows rolled up tight before blasting The Greatest Showman soundtrack.
Don't fight it, it's coming for you, running at you. It's only this moment, don't care what can gather.
Anyway, if you didn't sing along, you're a liar.
How long have you had that queued up? Your silence is reassuring.
We started at about 25 minutes. In other news, female pilot hoping the check engine light will just go out eventually.
That's bad.
In related news, panic erupts on Delta flight as captain of female crew announces that everything's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. I said it's fine.
Just go on doing whatever you want back there. It's fine. Why wouldn't it be fine?
No, go ahead. Tip your seat back. It's okay. Whatever.
You don't need to put your seatbelts on.
Do whatever you
fine.
want. Do what you want to do. That's fine.
It's fine. In other news, Californians announced discovery of strange new season. Winter.
Winter. At first, they thought it was fallout from the nuclear plant shutting down, but...
In completely unrelated news, Hunter Biden flies to California.
You have any idea the street value of this mountain? Keith, have you seen Better Off Dead?
No.
Yes. Such a good movie. Such a good movie. I want my $2.
I'll have to check that out.
It's a solid 10 out of 10.
That's a classic.
I
That
get
is
all
the
my
classic.
movie recommendations from you too.
As you should.
Yes, indeed. Our taste is impeccable.
Have we ever steered you wrong?
So far, I've seen Die Hard and what's that holiday?
Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, Christmas
Yes.
Vacation.
The best two Christmas movies
Best
you've
two
ever watched,
Christmas
right?
movies ever.
Yes.
Yes. See?
That's right. In other news, Jeremy Boring sitting in warehouse full of tires, waiting for Goodyear to say something stupid.
Oh. That's a solid one.
Surprised they don't have a joke about nutless in here somewhere. Anyway,
Well, the tires are nutless.
now we have a small series in honor of the late Mayor
late mayor?
Lori Lightfoot.
Oh, the person, not the horse.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Chicago honors Lori Lightfoot's legacy with 21 murder salute. Lightfoot loss blamed on rampant murder phobia.
You just hate murderers.
Man.
Yeah. Yes.
Lori Lightfoot blames election loss on Last but not least, our foreign news. Ukraine asks Merrick Garland to leave, as they already have enough corrupt government officials in Ukraine. They don't need any more.
Sorry, our corruption's full right now.
And that's the rest
Tell
of
me
the
that's how it
story.
worked.
That was great.
That was good.
There was some gold in there.
You only repeated
and some
one
cocaine.
You only repeated one story that we did before.
Very edgy headlines.
Did I really?
Yes, the Hobbit.
Technically,
the Hobbits.
technically, he didn't. It's just the punchline was the same. Because last time,
Yes,
it
delivered
was,
differently.
I was going to say, that one that I read didn't come out till March 1st, so I don't know how I could have...
yeah, the last one, it was she blamed the murder rate on Trixie Hoppinson's.
Oh.
Whereas this one, it was the election loss. Election loss is way
I
better.
stand corrected.
So,
Yeah. I was going to say, there's no way I repeated one.
Anyway.
I stopped on March 1st, which is the day after
Yep.
you guys recorded, so...
pointing out small differences because that's what I do, and it's totally socially popular.
It's totally socially. Technically.
I get yelled at all the time for being Mr. Literal when I'm just making a joke about how they were inaccurate because they weren't accurate at what they said. It was like,
Yes.
thank you, Mr. Literal. Like, no, dude, I'm making fun of you. Don't be a dick. Just think about the joke that is that sentence.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. You're a moron.
I'm sorry. You're a moron.
I'm not a moron. I just take everything literally.
Thanks, Mr. Literal. Mr. Technicalities over here.
Actually.
I mean, if you really look at it, it's it is actually correct to say that because anyway. I always think it's funny when people get mad at me for that though, and I'm like, oh, I was literally just making fun of you. Like, you don't get my sense of humor.
Sarcasm is a foreign language to you, isn't it?
Apparently.
Sarcasm doesn't translate to written stuff very well.
It wasn't in writing. It was live in person. People forgot how to communicate sarcasm in real life too, without emojis and shit.
Jeez. I need the emoji to let them know I'm sarcastic.
Where's my sarcastic
If
face
they
at?
need that, they're not a real friend of yours.
Forgot how to make the sarcastic face in real life. It's the deadpan.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes.
Oh.
Anyway. So.
What the hell is even that?
Yes. So we don't have a stinger of sorts yet for the rundown of stuff from the last week-ish of things.
Mike, how about you just pick a random one?
Yes, so last week we had Keith just thumb through and push a random button, and that was the stinger intro for that time of the weekly bushel of stuff that we'll pick through and decide. What to
Weekly
actually
bushel.
talk
Well,
about.
let's see. Let's glance through some of these headlines real quick and see
If there's a fitting
if there's
intro.
a fitting intro we've got here. I think I might have one. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. Where is it? Where is it?
He knows the soundboard much better than I do.
Ah, there it is. Found it. Okay.
And
I'm ready.
Go.
That is one big pile of shit.
Solid 10 out of 10.
Okay.
Yep,
On to
that's
the
the
real
new stinger
headlines.
for all of this. So, we've got some actual headlines for you guys this week. Starting off, let's go through the 2024 presidential race. Donald Trump takes off the gloves in his latest CPAC speech, which you guys can find at one of the links that we'll include. DeSantis is definitely not running a soft presidential campaign under the cover of promoting his latest book, The Courage to Be Free, Florida's Blueprint for America. That's definitely not a thing.
No, not at all.
Not at all. That's not a thing he's doing.
No.
Vivek Ramaswamy, say that name 5 times fast,
I'd rather not.
rallied a CPAC crowd behind an America First message, anti-ESG, and claims CPAC offered a better straw poll position if he paid them. Really? Better straw poll position if he paid them. CPAC did.
That has some
That's
implications.
shocking. With a capital bullshit. Wait. Nikki Haley leaned on identity politics for the bulk of her CPAC speech and spoke of needing to do better at convincing other Americans of a conservative message.
Nailed it.
You crushed that one. Crushed it. World War III is our next segment. And we're going to kick this one off with a question. Did the head of USAID, Samantha Power, just let loose that we were actually at war with Russia? You can read that article in our links. Mm-hmm. And 2 Ukrainian pilots are in the U.S. learning how to fly F-16s and other aircraft to find out how quickly their pilots could be combat ready in those aircraft. Did anybody have odds on that? We got an over-under?
No, over-under.
Are we taking bets? Can we take bets? There's a website that you can bet on pretty much anything. Does it have bets on this?
I'm presuming it's got to be before the elections in November would be my bet for sure. As far as where the actual over-under would lay, I don't know.
Do they have aircraft in Ukraine? That's the real question.
Currently, no.
Are the so how do they have Ukrainian pilots if they don't have aircraft for them to
They might be
pilot?
betting on getting some.
Is it like a 747 pilot that is converting?
Ukrainian pilots.
Okay. Yeah. I was just checking. All right. Next segment. CCP virus. So not only did Fauci bribe doctors to agree with his bat origin theory for the CCP virus, he also ordered the production of, edited, and gave final approval on the research paper he later used to exonerate himself before Congress.
I've investigated myself. I have investigated myself and determined I did nothing wrong.
See, I belong to a certain secret society. I don't believe I gotta mention its name.
Speaking of, why was CNN so terrible on their coverage of COVID? Aside from just being terrible in general, they were specifically ordered to ignore any lab leak theories. That doesn't scream secret society at all. It's not at all. No. The Senate has voted unanimously to declassify all documents related to the origin of COVID-19. Praise be.
Yes.
Praise be.
A blessing. A blessing from the Lord.
It is. It is indeed. So much so that I'm going to push a button.
A blessing.
We do have that
from
button.
the Lord.
We do.
God be praised.
God be praised.
It was magical. Also, in Wyoming, donating vaccinated blood may become illegal. Is that because of the people dying from the vaccine?
No, of course
other
not. That has nothing to
side
do
effects
with
that
any
are
of the
occurring?
lasting side effects.
Stop it. Get some help.
Yeah. Anyway. So, closer to at home, for us at least, the local news here in Utah is Draper is looking to adopt a 15-minute city. 15-minute city. In that tiny-ass little section of where the
state prison
is, currently sits. They're going to build an entire...
Over 14,000 people
15-minute city.
Isn't
Are
that
they going to
terrific?
live in little apartments on top of each other?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
That
Well,
sounds
makes
like a
sense.
15
You know,
minute
I
city.
just spent a day in Amsterdam, which is very similar to what they describe a 15-minute city being like.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was garbage.
Yeah.
The same plan is actively being protested in the UK
Right.
because it's a terrible idea. That's it. That's
the pile there.
the pile. That's all of it. So now I've got to come up with a stinger for coming off of this. So
outro.
here we go.
Gentlemen, I wash my hands of this weirdness.
fitting.
I thought so.
Yes.
I thought so.
All right. So that was definitely a more. Apparently, I'm very monotone with my delivery on things.
This is not anything that you didn't already know.
We're trying out new talent.
We're
Glad
trying
have
to
you back,
figure
Matt.
this out.
We decided to let the comedy try his hand.
Yes. I'm good at finding things. I fetch. I go fetch.
But he does not deliver.
I go fetch, and I create stingers that Mike gets annoyed at.
He drinks and he knows things. That's his place.
That's what I know how to do. And I do it decently.
He does. He does. He finds the stuff. I deliver it. That's how it works.
We're trying to come up with our own traditional roles here.
Yes. And clearly we found the one that I don't fit into.
It's okay because I fit it rather nicely, I'd say.
Thanks to reviews from listeners like you.
I don't know. I wasn't as horrified by the headlines when Mike delivered them.
Yes.
That's because I have a more happy, upbeat tone about it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's,
So-
it's the end of the world, but you'll be smiling the whole way.
That's right.
The handbasket to hell is quite comfy when you're in the right company.
Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
No, I remember last week Trevor delivered a line like the Pfizer faked vaccine results and threw out the data of the people who had health conditions. And I'm like, whoa, what?
Yes.
What?
Yes. Yeah, there was really no way to sugarcoat that headline.
And we wouldn't want to sugarcoat it either because then some of our listeners would try to eat it.
I feel like you just insulted people.
That's just insulting people.
People that are listening. People that aren't paying us. You insulted those people.
I did insult them. I did insult them. And the rest of them are going to think it's funny.
So in other words, we're looking for opinions on who should deliver the headlines because we certainly can't agree.
It's all right. Give me 5 minutes, I'll insult somebody else, and you can laugh.
Don't worry. All of you will have an opportunity soon enough.
I'm an equal opportunity hater.
I hate everyone equally.
Hate everyone equally, yes. Ask my wife. She knows. There's like 3 people on this planet I like. Her, Jesus, and like one of my brothers.
Yep. And 2 of them are not in this room. We are tolerated.
I will take it.
Yes. So
There's like tolerated, and then there's like not loathed,
different levels.
and then there's
Eventually you get to seething.
moderately okay, and then there's liked. You guys are like in the moderately okay section, so
Well, I
you're a few
feel
steps up from where you thought you were.
I
I'll
feel
take it.
complimented.
It's the best thing everyone did. Say.
That's the best thing anyone's
That's
ever
the
said
best
to me.
thing anyone's ever said to me.
From someone who thought that the best idea he'd ever heard was to screenshot an incoming call and put it as his cover photo on his phone so that he could fake a phone call to get out of conversations with people. I think that's a pretty high praise.
It is acceptable.
Also, if you're looking for good ideas as an introvert, that one's gold.
That one. Not even an introvert, just to get out of meetings and anything. It's like, I got a call. It's the wife.
It's the wife.
She doesn't call unless it's important.
It's grandma. Didn't she die 3 weeks ago?
Nah.
Well, that makes it really important. I got to see what this is.
Different grandma.
Different
That's
grandma.
what makes it so important.
Everybody has at least 2 of those, right?
At least. It's my adopted grandma. How many adopted grandmas do you have? As many as I need.
As many as I need.
So in that basket of goodies, Keith, what's numero uno that stands out to you there?
You know, I'm interested in just about all of these.
Just about all of them.
Let's talk about Nikki Haley leaning on identity politics and needing to do better at convincing other Americans of a conservative message. What was she talking about there?
A whole lot of nothing is what she was talking about. And it's sad because she had so much promise heading into this. You know, because she used to be the ambassador to the UN where she shut down most of the other ambassadors there all the time with, you guys can dog on America all you want, but we'll pull ourselves out if we have to. And then you'll have no money.
Yeah.
But some of the highlights, she said, in case you didn't notice, the liberal media's heads are exploding about my run for president. I am proof that liberals are wrong about everything they worry about. They say everything they say about America because she is a woman and she's a woman of color and she's Republican.
She's a woman of color?
Yes.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, her father is from India, I think it is, or something like that.
Oh, well, okay then.
Yeah.
Oh. I would never have guessed.
Yes, and she also said, where is it? One of the Republicans' loudest applause lines was when Haley, after describing herself as the first minority female governor in history, declared America is not a racist country. Yes. So she's checking identity tick marks while also saying things that are pertinent to the political conversation. And she does point out we've lost the popular vote in 7 of the last 8 presidential elections. Our cause is right, but we have failed to win the confidence of a majority of Americans. That ends now.
How? Did she talk about how?
Well, she's the first woman of color.
So that'll win votes. Oh.
Hey, yeah. Yeah. She's based from what I garner from her platform and the things she said. She says just enough of the right things to get a reaction, and her platform is basically take your standard GOP platform and step up a notch or two.
What, in the woke agenda?
You know, I wonder
on the conservative side.
I wonder if this isn't part of kind of a plan, because I know she's supported Trump before.
Yes.
She stated she would support him in this election.
But then she decided to run.
But then she decided she was the first Republican to decide to run against him. Officially. I'm wondering if this isn't her kind of campaign to be his VP.
Right. That's
because she's come out and she started off with a very more centrist point.
She's the calm face.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the reasonable one.
Right.
Yeah. But
and she also fits several of the bills for things that Democrats vote for.
Yes.
She's a person of color, she's a female. You know, when they're voting for demographic rather than for actual competency, she fits those bills.
And she did get a lot of heat because she suggested that in order to be in government, you, if you're, what was it?
You need to be younger than 75?
Yeah,
Isn't that what she said?
Yeah, something like that. Or you need to pass a competency test if you're over 75, I think is what she said.
Yeah.
And she got a lot of boos and hisses for that from social media. I'm sure it has nothing to do with every single potential Democrat candidate is like 75 or older.
Yeah.
Well, that's an
I mean, I don't exactly disagree with her though either.
No.
Like that everybody in politics is way too old,
and they've been there for decades.
They've been there forever.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, Trump is older. He hasn't been in politics. He's been in business, but he's also not like falling apart like some of them are. I mean, freaking Pelosi and Biden, like, what the hell are these people doing outside of a geriatric home?
Isn't Trump older than Biden?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. You wouldn't know based
you
off
wouldn't
of
know
mentality.
it. Yeah, you wouldn't know it,
right.
but
That can't be
but
right.
yeah. I believe he's
Trump
a year or
is
two older.
76.
Uh-huh.
Oh, 80. Okay, Joe Biden's 80.
Oh, he is
Still,
younger. Okay.
4 years between them.
Yeah, 4 years between them. But and Biden's been the way he is for a lot longer than 4 years though. Like,
If it's the same.
I will say, I believe that both of them are older than Bill Clinton, though.
Yes.
So it gives you an idea of just like how much older our recent presidential
Well,
candidates have been.
even
compared
Bill
to the
Clinton. Have
past.
you seen him recently?
Yeah, he looks terrible.
He looks terrible.
well, I mean, you would too if you were married to that.
But yeah, Donald
That's
Trump
fair.
and Joe Biden, they were both elected as the oldest presidents ever elected each time they were elected.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Nikki Haley. She had a lot of potential, but like Mike said, I think it's more so she's just trying to get her name out there so she'd be popular enough for a VP vote.
Yeah. And she's taking the hit because she's going more centrist so that she can be the reasonable one
type
thing
maybe,
to bring
I'm
in
really
more
not
votes.
into like the demographic.
Oh, I hate it. I
boxes
think it's
or
terrible.
whatever, but
Yeah.
I do know that there's lots of people that vote based off of those things alone.
They do, and
Which is
that's
also terrible.
and it's terrible. But that's what I'm saying is it's politics. That's what they're playing.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I'm
Like-
not one to judge the political expediency of doing a move like that.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
like if that we can agree that the state of affairs that people vote that way is a terrible state of affairs. Nevertheless, if people vote that way, it's politically expedient to check some of those boxes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's at least playing the political game, and she's also got her finger on the pulse of the base, knowing that she can't just have the vanilla Republican stance on things. She has to step it up. In
one thing I will say is I do think that the biggest argument against Trump being the nominee is that
DeSantis is running.
well.
Why? I couldn't.
I object
And why is that, Mr. Reed?
because it's devastating to my case.
Overruled.
Good call.
Okay, yes, so maybe that supersedes my argument. But what I'm saying,
Sorry, I guess.
Yes. You're good. Go.
Go on.
what I'm saying is that a lot of suburban women are like allergic to voting for Trump. We saw
Yes.
that in 2020.
Yeah.
Well, 2016 we saw it, but especially 2020 we saw it.
Yes.
And so we need a strategy to overcome that, and I don't see a strategy. Like
That's because there isn't a strategy.
I'm really worried if Trump gets nominated again for that same reason. If he's going to lose for the same reason, we should maybe not nominate him a second or a third time, actually.
There's never a strategy.
It's when
It's
But
the
yeah.
same. It's the same thing every time. It
don't-
always has been.
I don't think DeSantis will suffer the same, shall we say, allergic reaction.
he
from
doesn't
certain
have the
demographics.
baggage that's automatically.
And also,
with
he's just so dang inspiring. Anyway, we'll
and
gush
he
over
doesn't say
DeSantis.
stupid shit all the time.
Let's that brings us to DeSantis is definitely not running as a soft presidential campaign. Let's talk about that article.
Yes. So he's been making the rounds on all sorts of radio shows and TV shows and all this stuff because he released a book, the Courage to Be Free: Florida's Blueprint for America. In the book, he describes exactly what it is he's doing to make Florida the place where people want to be. So it's something that every single governor in the union should be looking at so they can have what Florida has, if not better.
Well, wouldn't that be wonderful?
Wouldn't that be wonderful? So,
It would be.
So his tour landed him in California at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. And in his...
I went there on my honeymoon.
Wow.
Wow. Even I didn't go that far.
Wow. So romantic.
No, we had one more day to fill, and I'm like, okay, honey.
I went to Florida for my honeymoon, but I went to Universal Studios, not to...
We had a day to fill, and I'm like, okay, the most romantic place I can think of in California is the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, and my wife...
It just turns me on so much.
My wife said that sounds great, and I said, I love you so much.
Oh, wow, that's sweet. You two are obviously made for each other.
Goodness. So...
Okay.
That really is cool, though.
A couple of highlights from DeSantis. When he started out his speech, he said, I knew you guys had a lot of problems out here, but your governor is very concerned about what we're doing in Florida. So I figured I had to come by. And he also said, and I think if you look over the last 4 or 5 years, and you look at the performances of individual states, and you compare Florida versus California, New York, Illinois, some of those other states, we have had a great experiment, a great test in governing philosophies. Because, of course, you know, we approach things much differently in Florida than you guys have out here.
Thank goodness.
Much differently in Florida than they've done in New York and in Illinois and in many of these other states. And if you look over the last 4 years, we've witnessed a great American exodus from states governed by leftist politicians, imposing leftist ideology and delivering poor results. And you've seen massive gains in states like Florida, who are governing according to the tried and true principles that President Reagan held dear. From the beginning of this state's history all the way into the last 4 or 5 years, people beat a path to California. You didn't beat a path away from California, and yet now you see the state hemorrhaging population. It's just smashing California, mostly Newsom, on the head over and over and over again in his speech.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would do. Californians an easy target.
It is an easy. That's almost punching down, really.
Just leave the kid alone.
Isn't California like the 50th best state in like everything, in like unemployment and best place to start a business or something?
They are definitely low on the list. Yes.
Yeah.
It's also one of a handful of states that are insolvent, meaning that if it were possible for a state to go bankrupt, they would. And that's saying something, considering that California has more revenue than most other countries do.
Yep. No, they would be something like, I think they'd be like in the top 10 best largest economies if they were a country.
Yes.
Yeah, but their policies and stuff and their spending is so completely out of control that they are completely insolvent.
Yep.
Which means they bring in less than they spend every year after year.
So the reason why DeSantis did that was because Gavin Newsom bought campaign ads in Florida telling residents there that your freedom is under attack. And he responded to DeSantis's speech. Gavin Newsom. He said, California residents are safer, healthier, and more prosperous than those unfortunate enough to have you as their governor. Oh, by the way, you're going to get smoked by Trump. DeSantis has not even said that he's running for president, or even said that he's looking into it.
That was Gavin Newsom
that was Gavin Newsom that said that California residents are safer, healthier, and more prosperous than those unfortunate.
Said the man who shut down the economy and forbade people from leaving their homes.
Says the man who state has cities that are overrun with human feces on the side of the road and needles.
Wonder if Newsom's planning to run.
I think he is.
Oh,
actually, I think
I'm
he's
sure
heavily rumored.
He has the look.
Too.
He has that suave, debonair look about himself. Unless you know what he's really doing, then he has that definitely an evil villain from Marvel type look to his.
He definitely has the pedo face.
Yes.
He's got the pedo face.
Pedo face. You got the worst little pedo face.
Mostly the hair, like that slick back thing. He just...
The greasy used car salesman, possibly pedophile look.
I almost guarantee he was on Weinstein's list.
He stands behind every car he sells because if he stood in front, he'd get run over.
You know, so...
Do you mean Epstein's list?
Epstein, that's what I meant. Epstein's list. So many Steens, so little time.
Stein,
whatever. Anyway, carry on.
He
All
lost
right.
it. All right.
I was gonna say, it's interesting to me because when you put down the ideas on paper for the different sides here, you know, you've got DeSantis on the one side, Newsom on the other. If you're talking like specifically what we're talking about here, and you've got the Newsom ideas are very socialistic. They're very left. They're very Marxist influenced, very very much so.
Yes.
And then you have DeSantis's ideas, which are very much the opposite. They're very free market. They're very capitalistic and things like that. If you were to write down the ideals of the different ideologies here,
Conservatism versus progressivism.
Marxism, I think it's more Marxism now than anything else.
Yes.
Yep, agreed.
Because it's not progressing anymore. It's going Marxist. That's the idea.
Progressivism never progresses.
I feel like
Exactly.
tried those ideas before.
That's what they're going for. If you write down the ideals of each of those, then look at them. The idea behind Marxism sounds much better. Simply because the way that they word it, the way that they write out their idea, the idea is to make it so that everyone prospers the same, so that everybody has enough, so that everybody has all these things. That's the idea.
Yes.
And the idea behind the free market and behind capitalism and behind conservatism is that everyone has an opportunity to acquire. And the difference comes in something very, very simple, I think. And I think it was either Sowell or Friedman that said it, the simplest. He said the biggest difference in which way you lean is whether you see the world or you see these things, these fixes as being absolute or as being trade-offs.
Uh-huh.
And one view is idealistic and one view is realistic.
Yeah.
Because idealistically, we do
The ideal
X, Y,
society.
and Z. The
Yes.
ideal society, you do X, Y, and Z, and everybody has enough. Everybody has a place to live. Everybody has. That's what Marxism, socialism, that's what it's based on, is idealism. This idea that ideally we can make this government that will force everybody to have enough. But it's not realistic. When it's implemented, it inevitably does the opposite. Because what you have in reality is a series of trade-offs. You can't fix every problem in existence because humans exist. And that's not to say that humans are a problem. It's just to say that because there's so many different personalities, so many different things in the world, you can't possibly fix every single problem so that every single person on the planet is happy. You can't. You just can't.
Yeah.
That is not a realistic view. That cannot possibly happen, period. So what you end up with is trade-offs. You can do it this way and get one result, or you can do it this other way and get this other result, and which one ends up with the most actual benefit? Well, the answer to that is maximum freedom results in maximum benefit. Because when people are free to make their own choices, to do their own stuff, they inevitably make the best life for themselves.
Yes.
And by making the best life for themselves, they inevitably make other people's lives better, because one thing about human nature is that in order to make yourself or your life better, you have to acquire the skills and talents of other people to do the things that you cannot do.
Yes.
And so for every person that you have to use their skills to make your life better, if you exempt slavery, which slavery is not a thing in a free market society.
No.
If you exempt slavery, the only possible way to acquire skills and talents and things that you don't possess is to have compensate somebody to teach you those skills and talents, or to compensate somebody to do those things for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
In exchange of goods.
In exchange of goods.
Yeah, and because it's voluntary.
And because it's voluntary,
you
everybody
only
prospers.
engage in a transaction if you value the thing that you're buying more than the money that you're spending. And so with every transaction, people's lives are getting better.
Right. And so you see that it's this trade-off. And so if you have this idealistic view of the world, you think, well, this idea is great. If we just make this safety net so that nobody can fall below this poverty line, then it will fix everything and everybody will be fine. But there's a trade-off there. You set that safety net, but then it inevitably leads to unforeseen consequences that actually make things worse for certain people.
Yes.
It's because they have too many assumptions in their ideology.
Without fail. Without fail.
Socialism or Marxism, both of them, they rely...
It's the same thing.
Yes. They all stem from a misunderstanding of human nature.
Yes.
Because human nature is to be lazy. How do I know that? Because Marxism is all about being lazy.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not about that. It's about the worker being the worker is too lazy to work.
Yes.
What they're required to work.
Do you know how we know it's all about laziness? Have you met a socialist?
Yes. Yes.
Seriously, though.
And so the fix for that, the socialist fix for human nature of being lazy is to, well, you don't want to do anything, so we're going to make people that do want to do something do things for you, so then everyone has what they need.
Yeah.
Do you know what I think?
Whereas the free market, it recognizes people are lazy, so let's capitalize on the laziness.
Yeah.
This guy has an idea for digging a hole that involves using equipment that can dig the hole 10 times deeper, 20 times faster.
Yeah.
Let's give him something to make that idea work.
Right. And so the argument that you always get from Democrats is, well, but your solution doesn't fix X. Well, yeah, but neither does yours, because yours is going to implement this policy, which is going to maybe fix that problem for some people, but then it's going to create this other problem.
How's that war on drugs going?
Exactly.
How was prohibition?
How did prohibition work out for you?
Oh, you ended up poisoning the alcohol. Oh, okay. Yeah, it worked out real well then.
You ended up with more people drinking and having drinking problems during Prohibition than you did before or after.
Drinking more dangerous alcohol than was available beforehand.
Right.
Fascinating.
And it's the same thing with the war on drugs. You have overdoses all the time. You have all these issues with the war on drugs. Well, it's not because drugs aren't illegal, because they are. It's because the fact that you made it illegal makes people want to go get it. It makes it expensive. It makes it so that you can't regulate its sale.
The fentanyl problem we have right now isn't just because of an open border. It's because of this long, drawn-out, quote-unquote, war on drugs that's done nothing except accelerate the use of drugs to the point where people are not getting the highs and fixes they used to get off of low-grade marijuana and whatever else that they grow in their backyard, to where they need to get that fixed through drugs that are laced with fentanyl that are killing them.
You want to end the cartel's power reach in the United States tomorrow? And the war on drugs.
And the war on drugs, and then severely slash the regulations on prescription drugs.
Yeah.
Because that's what some of the fentanyl stuff is
Yep.
It's too expensive to get the painkillers that they need from the market, from the legal market.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to this guy in the alley that has the oxy whatever to kill the pain. It's laced with fentanyl.
Yeah. And then they overdose.
And then they overdose and they die because...
And
yeah.
And that's the whole thing. And the war on drugs, and you fix that problem. Granted, I believe the war on drugs is mostly on the Republican side, but honestly anymore, I think they're the same freaking coin.
Yes.
So, you know, it's all and it's funny because I look at it and I'm like, yeah, you look at the Republicans and the Democrats for the last 50 years, you look at the things that they've done, and it doesn't matter which side is in office, the same agenda is pushed from two different angles.
Mm-hmm.
The war on terror was a different angle that pushed for where we're at today.
Yes.
Obamacare was a different angle that pushed for where we are today. And Obamacare was originally suggested by Romney.
Mitt frickin' Romney.
Oh, you said the name.
I did say the name. So
say it 3 times and he's summoned in the room.
You look back at this and it's like, oh, I'm voting for the lesser of two evils. Are you? Or are you just voting for the other side of the same evil?
Are you voting? Are you voting for the lesser of two evils or the slower of two evils?
Right.
They're both. They're both
I wouldn't even say it's the slower of two evils, because look at what George W. Bush did.
Oh yeah,
he did more in 4 years after 9/11 for the security state, for the surveillance state, for being able to detain and to search and to wiretap U.S. citizens.
Al Gore would have done so much worse.
Maybe. I don't think so.
Maybe, or he would have had a green spin to it.
Yeah. And so I wouldn't even say that they're slower. It's literally just a different angle. I mean, the freaking Patriot Act is one of the worst pieces of legislation that's ever crossed the freaking DC table at all, ever.
Yeah, it's to the point where even people that helped draft the Patriot Act are saying, yeah, it's not supposed to be used like this. This wasn't the intended use for the act.
Oh, it was the intended use. Well, it was always the intended use.
It was always the intended use, but they just
didn't know
so much
it.
so, yes, that the people writing it had no idea what it was actually going to be used for.
Okay, so Mike, you were saying contrasting the two ideas on paper. What was your conclusion to that?
So if you write them out, if you write them out on paper, Marxism looks much better on paper.
So long as capitalism provides it.
Just because, yeah, exactly. It looks much better on paper simply because it's very idealistic. It's a fantasy.
Again, they
novel.
have to assume that people are going to be motivated to continue working as hard as they're working.
They have to assume that people will keep the principles of capitalism implemented in socialism.
Even though them working harder is not going to better their lives at all.
It's Star Trek. That's what it is. It's Star Trek. You write it out on paper, you put it in a show, and it looks awesome.
Uh-huh.
It looks like the most succulent piece of fruit you've ever thought to eat.
We should have a subscription service where Marxists just make shows where Marxism works, but you only get access to that show if you relinquish your ability to vote. And they will give that up for a streaming service. Well, that's my theory.
One argument I've made to people before that were all for Marxism and socialism and whatever ism like that.
I'm not a fan of isms.
I told them that if they can get people to rally together to support their idea, I challenged them to get a large crowd to rally together and support their idea, but they can't use anything from a capitalistic society.
They literally couldn't use a soapbox.
They couldn't use a soapbox. They can't use paper. They can't use the internet. They can't use a phone. They can't use a car. They can't use buses. None of it. Because socialism gives you nothing. That's why Cuba is so adorable with its vehicles still stuck in the 80s. Because that's the last time that brand new cars got into Cuba was back in the 80s. So they're just
They literally haven't had a new car since the 1980s?
Unless you're Castro or whoever's in charge of Cuba now.
Right.
And all his military ilk. Then you got some 90s or 2000s Russian something or other.
And so they were all manufactured in the 80s. And those are just the cars
and they were
that
from the
have.
U.S.
Wow.
Because they bought the Fords and the Chevys and whatever and the Toyotas from the U.S. in the 80s. And then Castro takes over, implements communism, which bars them from doing trade with the U.S. because communism is not really liked by people that actually like to do work and enjoy the benefits of their labor. And so now all those people, since the 80s, have been rebuilding all of the technology that they have to keep it going, not to invent something new. Which is also why you see people, when they escape from Cuba, they've got rafts made out of cars because that's all they got to try to make it float and go across to Florida.
Right.
Yeah, I love the way that Ferris Bueller put it. You remember the monologue from Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
There's a lot of monologues.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. I do have a test today. That wasn't bullshit. It's on European socialism. I mean, really, what's the point? Ha! I'm not European. I don't plan on being European. So who gives a crap if they're socialists? They could be fascist anarchists, and it still wouldn't change the fact that I don't own a car.
Thank you.
It's not that I condone fascism or any ism for that matter. Isms, in my opinion, are not good. A person should not believe in an ism. He should believe in himself. I quote John Lennon, I don't believe in Beatles. I just believe in me. A good point there. After all, he was the walrus. I could be a walrus. I'd still have to bum rides off of people.
Yeah. Anyway, I do find several of these articles still very interesting. Trevor, could we talk about the one where Vivek Ramaswamy was offered a better straw poll position if he paid them more?
Yeah, so he's an interesting character because his family is immigrants from India.
Is he like running for president? Or
He is running for president. He is the third official Republican nominee for president. He got his start with building a biotech company. I think it's called Biotech or something like that. And he decided he was done with that when, during the Black Lives Matter protests and George Floyd protests, CEOs were being pressured to give some sort of speech about how their company's bowing the knee to them and whatever, and he wouldn't do it. And he started having people resigning left and right, and they tried to change the board of directors on him and all this stuff, so he just sold his company and was done with it.
Okay.
And moved on, and he's created an investment firm that is like BlackRock, except it votes for the opposite things that BlackRock votes for.
Okay.
So his shtick is he's very strong on anti-ESG things.
Okay. Good for him.
Which is
I like that.
Nice. He may or may not have. He's probably the strongest third wheel of the. If Ron DeSantis actually does run, he's probably the strongest third wheel.
Okay.
Just because of what he brings in, he's got FU money, just like Trump did when he first ran.
Oh,
I
good for
like
him.
FU money. I wish I had FU money.
So when CPAC supposedly offered his campaign the ability to get tickets to the, let's see, Ramaswamy, the multi-millionaire entrepreneur, best-selling author, conservative commentator, blah, 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 alleged that political consultant tied to CPAC offered his campaign the ability to get tickets to the conference and bring a bunch of supporters who could vote in the straw poll for a fee that would be upwards of $100,000. Because the straw poll from CPAC had Donald Trump ahead like 62% to whatever.
Is DeSantis in that poll?
I think DeSantis was in it, and he got like 20-something
Okay.
in the straw poll. So if his claims are true, then CPAC, you can't trust a single straw poll out of CPAC if that's the case. Because that means they basically the people that were speaking paid for positions in the poll, in the straw poll. But it wasn't an issue of money for Ramaswamy because he sold a multi-billion-dollar company recently. So
Right.
And I think to kind of Mike's point, where no matter which side it is, it's the same thing. I think that's part of what made Trump such a bad deal for Republicans and Democrats is since he had FU money, he ran his campaign basically funded himself. Didn't really need the Republican Party to come in and
Right.
bail him out and run ads for him.
Yeah.
Which meant that he wasn't beholden to anyone.
Yeah.
And they don't like not being able to control people. And Donald Trump was, in their mind, out of control because he was
I
just
thought
upturning.
he was a great president.
Right, but he was upturning all these things, and especially the Ukraine thing, he started turning over stones in Ukraine. It's like, hell, this place is corrupt. And that's about when you started seeing Republicans start to turn on him, is on the
Right.
Ukraine thing.
Right.
It's like, oh, what are they got? What are they involved in Ukraine? It's not just Biden over there; it's other Republicans were involved there too. Most likely, it's only the most corrupt
Almost
country
indubitably.
in Europe. But yeah, so someone like Ramaswamy comes in. He'd be the youngest president. He's 36, I think, right now, or 37. So he's at the tail end of the millennial generation.
Wow.
So he fits the mold. He's not running. None of his speeches have been, I check this box, I'm an immigrant. I check this box,
Good.
I'm
Good. Even
he's-
though he checks those boxes,
he
it
checks
sounds
those
like
boxes,
he's not
but he himself
emphasizing
is
that.
not checking that box. Yes.
Yeah.
But if he's coming in funding his own campaign like Trump did, that's going to stir the pot a little bit. Because, again, they don't like someone that they can't control. And if he's bringing in this narrative of anti-ESG, anti-WEF, and all these things, if he doesn't make it as president, he's definitely going to bring that heavily into the conversation for Trump and potentially DeSantis to
Bring
have
what
to
heavily into the
the
conversation?
ESG and the WEF.
Okay. Good. Good.
end of
Good.
things.
Yeah. No. I'm.
So with him running and with him being a pretty solid third wheel, at the very least, he brings that into the conversation where it has to be addressed and puts the other two on the record for having some position
Yeah.
on it. And at the very least, it makes him a strong VP candidate for someone.
Oh yeah.
too.
I totally agree. I mean,
because he's all for FBI's got to go. The Department of Education's got to go. He's all for just leveling.
I just
federal
want one of these guys to promise to veto any and every bill that comes across their desk that has anything to do with gun control.
Yeah,
That's
amen to that.
because that's one of the biggest things that pissed me off about Trump was
The bump stock thing.
the bump stock
bump
thing.
stock. There was a couple other things
Yes.
that he signed too that I was just
Yeah.
like,
why?
why? Why? If you're really not beholden to anybody, why?
It was
Why
just-
sign that? Because
and I-
that's bullshit.
And I think
Yeah.
that's the New Yorker in him coming out of being in New York for so long, surrounded by that ilk.
You know,
Yeah, I definitely think that Trump gave into public pressure on a few of those. When
Yes.
there was
Yeah.
really no reason to. Anyway, so is the point of this article to basically introduce this guy, or is it to point out that he was offered what it was effectively a bribe to get higher in the poll?
Yes, the point was that he was offered a bribe. He announced, is it last week? I think he officially announced, and he's made the rounds on different talk shows.
Well,
and
I
stuff
have to
too.
say, this article, I'd never heard of this guy
He-
before. This offers a pretty good introduction to him. I do like that he's against the ESG stuff, and just so we're defining our terms,
Okay.
here ESG means the climate score thing
Yep.
for companies.
Your social score, yeah.
Basically, it's going to become a social score. Big conspiracy, New World Order stuff. But yeah, if he's against that, then I like him.
he also called for disbanding the FBI
Yeah.
and the Department of the Education, and vowed to end federally mandated affirmative action.
Yes.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
He'd make a great VP.
I'd vote for this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like it.
Like if he threw in, and he didn't even get to finish his speech because he kept getting interrupted by standing ovations.
Yeah.
Okay.
He ran out of time.
Like really, I'd vote for that guy.
The next article that I
vote for
that I found really interesting is Fauci bribed doctors, and he also approved a research paper that exonerated himself. Let's talk about Fauci.
Yeah. So last year, the year before that, Mike and I even covered some of this because, it was already out there that there were doctors that opposed Fauci, and then he did a phone call, and then suddenly those doctors favored Fauci. And the suspicion was that they were bribed to go with Fauci instead of be against him. And now it's confirmed that they indeed were paid $25 million grants after the phone call Fauci made to them, where he said, you guys need to change your mind. But the House Select Committee on the Coronavirus Pandemic released evidence Sunday that Fauci ordered, helped to edit, and gave final approval to a paper titled The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2, which was published on February 17th. Exactly 2 months later, Fauci used that same publication to wave away concerns that the virus might have come from a Chinese facility. And yes, he used that same thing to try to exonerate himself when Rand Paul was cross-examining him in the Senate. So under oath, he said all that.
It's almost like the science, again, Dr. Fauci is apparently the science, according to him. They're coming up with all these, basically bullcrap sources that are really complicated, that just go around in circles, that they could literally use that to justify anything.
Uh-huh.
Because, again, like you said last week, we never found a bat infected with COVID-19, and yet they created these research papers that said, oh, yep, COVID-19, it came from a bat or something. So if you question that narrative, then you are bad and banned from social media.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Rand Paul asked him specifically in January of 22, did you communicate with 5 scientists who wrote the opinion piece in Nature where they were describing, there's no way this could have come from a lab? That was not me, Fauci answered Paul. You keep distorting the truth. It's stunning how you do that, says the man who wrote, edited, directed, funded the quote-unquote research
and produced
that supported
Just
his
kidding.
side. Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's something I've noticed from the biggest liars that I've ever met is they tend to deny very confidently what is obviously big lies.
Mm-hmm.
That's the pattern that I've found.
Yeah. And see if they just early on, if they went with the lab leak thing, then I would say, okay, yeah, they screwed up with their handling of things. It leaked out, sure. However, with how much they've been fighting this, even now, it's like, did it leak from the lab?
That's the next question.
Or was it released from the lab?
No, my rule of thumb is whenever I can't get a good explanation as to a good scientific explanation or whatever, and their justification is basically just believe it, stupid.
Uh-huh.
That's the sort of things you should question the most. So
and assume the worst
and assume
possible
the worst
thing that you can think of.
Things like COVID-19 origins or voter fraud or climate change.
They did it on purpose.
All of those things are things where the best explanation I get is just believe it, stupid.
Conspiracy theory hole here.
Yes. Yay. That's what we live for.
Okay. So my whole spiel on Democrats, Republicans being the same, right? So they get this president who's not beholden to anybody. He is looking at things in Ukraine. He's doing all this stuff they don't want him to do.
Shutting down China.
Oh, is the
Shutting down
punchline
China.
that they released COVID to get rid of Trump?
No. The punchline is they released COVID so that they could keep pushing their agenda.
Yeah.
Because look at what COVID did across the world. You had, because you also have to remember here that when I'm talking about this, Republicans and Democrats being the same, I don't even mean that they're the same in the fact that they are just trying to ruin America. I mean that they are the same as in they are part of something that is worldwide, that is trying to create a one world government that has all these things lined up. And you can see it if you look back across the last, even the last 30 years, the moves that have been made in America haven't only affected America. They've affected
global moves.
Globally.
Yeah.
You look at COVID, the place it affected the least is America. But that's because we had people like Ron DeSantis who refused to bend the knee.
Because of federalism.
But if it were possible for the federal government to enforce, no, everybody has to do exactly this, exactly what Fauci says, we would have ended up just like all of the other countries that now have vaccine passports and all of this other bullshit that they now have to go through.
It's almost like there's a secular ideology that is uniting all the elites. I wonder what that could be.
Some human something.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Mike, you should listen to last week's episode.
I'm sure I will when I have some time. It's been a hell of a few weeks, but yeah, that's like when I'm talking about two sides of the same coin. It's the same coin that's a currency across the world right now.
Yeah, I am convinced that if there is some Democrats and Republicans basically being beholden to the same ideology, and again, the last Republican before Trump was Bush, and he wasn't that great. He's quite terrible in some aspects.
Yes.
Anyway, so I could definitely buy that, but I am convinced that Trump was not part of whatever that beholden thing was.
It was their nuclear option.
Yeah, and the last Republican president before Bush was George H.W.
And then before
and
that,
the one before
Reagan.
him was Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
George H.W. Read my lips. No
Right?
new taxes.
And Ronald Reagan, I feel like, was much more along the lines of what Donald Trump was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Than anything. He was a wrench in the cogs, not a cog in the machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And much like Trump, he came from that side, from the progressive side, so to speak. He knew what was going on behind closed doors.
Reagan did?
Yes. So much like Trump, he came out and said, "Hey, this is what they're doing in there, and it's messed up."
Yeah.
Yeah. And
just
Reagan,
like Trump, he made decisions that were stupid when it came down to critical decisions being made.
Reagan was very much a fan of Friedman and the Friedman economics. That's what he based the Reaganomics on.
Yes.
Good stuff.
Was Friedman's teachings of economics. He didn't go quite as far as Friedman did, but even Friedman said that at the point that we were at back then, you needed to step it back. Like you needed to do things a little bit at a time.
You can't just suddenly change everything on everyone. Yeah.
You can't just suddenly change everything on everyone. So Reagan's moves were very much geared that way, making those steps to where it would have been possible to continue, along that track. But then we had George H.W., we had Bill Clinton, we had George W., we had Barack Obama. Now we have Biden, and since Reagan, the best economy we've had was Trump.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the best livelihood we've had since Reagan was Trump.
Yep.
And yet the ideals that have been pushed by, because I don't even count H.W. and W. Bush as conservatives.
No, they are not.
They're not. You go through the policies that they put in place, the things that they did, and they are very much more along the side of liberals than anything else. Well, not even, liberals is a misnomer. That's not what that word meant. They commandeered it, and it's wrong.
Woodrow freaking Wilson.
Exactly. But, they're much more along that line of thinking than they should be, to be considered conservative. And, you had Reagan, who saved our economy for a little while, Trump, who saved our economy for a little while, but everybody in the middle was pushing it along this road. And arguably, many of the people before, you go all the way back to frickin' Lincoln, and there's hardly any of those presidents that were that kept the Constitution and everything where it should have been.
Calvin Coolidge.
Yep.
He's about the only one in between.
Yep.
He cut the budget in half, and then the next year, he cut the budget in half again.
Right. So you have
which brought people out of the Great Depression.
You have 1923 to 1929, and then 1981 to 1989, and then 2017 to 2021. We get one decent president every how often? Every 60 years?
Oh, dang it.
30 years? See, it was 60 between Coolidge and Reagan.
The numbers
and
are
30
so small. It's
between
it's hard
Reagan
to
and
give
Trump.
an average.
About.
Dang it. Yeah, I'm sure that's why Biden isn't in talks with the World Health Organization to have them be in charge of the next pandemic globally.
That was sarcasm, right?
No. No, that's
he's not in talks for.
No, he is in talks with. They're trying to figure out a good treaty, whatever thing to sign. Multiple countries sign together that should another pandemic arise, the World Health Organization would basically take the reins and dictate how things should be done across the world.
And their first mandate would be...
All right, I've heard enough. Deadly force authorized.
Yeah, the fact checkers, of course, are out there saying, no, Biden isn't trying to sign away America's blah, 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 blah,
Yes,
blah.
he is.
It's so vaguely worded that...
Sure he is.
Yeah, it probably is.
Well, and then you top that off with people from the World Economic Forum talking, or from the... It was the UN. From the UN talking about assisting the U.S. federal government in taking away the guns of the citizens and things like that.
I have an official statement for that.
We will help you to oppress your people.
I have an official statement for that. So
you should get your people in line.
The UN wants to assist in confiscating firearms.
Yes, they do.
Actually, we're all tickled to hear you say that.
Wait.
I'm sorry.
Actually,
you
Warner,
mean that the person knocking on my door might not be another American? Sold.
As far as I'm concerned, if you're wearing that blue helmet, you're not an American.
Yep.
Well, I'm part of the Army. No, you are not.
Not our Army.
That blue helmet does not say USA. It says UN.
Yep.
Actually, Warner, we're all tickled to hear you say that.
Now, let's talk about those 15-minute cities. Let's start with the UK.
So in the UK, they decided it'd be a great idea to do this 15-minute city, which is a World Economic Forum idea.
Of course.
They pushed it real hard in their last Davos meeting. So in Oxford, England, they took this concept of 15-minute city and decided to basically lock people into a area that they decided was 15 minutes to have access to your home, your work, your food, entertainment, all that stuff, all within 15 minutes of walking distance. So they put
walking or biking.
Yeah, so they put gates up and stuff like this to section off where that 15-minute city is. If you wanted to leave that 15-minute
Let me
area...
guess, you need approval.
Papers, please. We need your papers, please. Yeah, the people weren't too happy about that, so they started tearing down the gates and protesting and all that fun stuff.
Of course.
That's how well it took root in England, where they are more than happy to adopt many socialist ideas. However,
Socialist Europe.
the idea of
Why do I
being
care if they're socialist?
locked into a small area of their entire country didn't sit well with them.
Yeah. I can't imagine why.
And then here at home in Utah, like we mentioned, the state prison, for whatever reason, they decided to not have a state prison there anymore. Whatever. The residents nearby don't like it. Was the prison there before or after they moved in? Before.
I just got to say, there's something mental about committing crime within a few miles of a prison that people just, they don't do it as often.
Right.
Like, just saying.
If you're going to live somewhere next to a prison, is probably the safest place because it's kind of like a beacon of a reminder of what you shouldn't do.
It kind of messes with people's heads when they go to to commit a crime, and they can see the prison fence, on the other side of the street, and they're like, maybe somewhere else.
Either way, I have about the same amount of sympathy for those people as I do for people that complain about the dump.
Yes.
The dump is smelly. I don't like it.
Or
Was
the
the
lake.
dump there before or after you moved in?
or the military camp nearby that is constantly doing live ammunition training.
It's so loud.
So loud.
Was it there? You can't expand Lagoon. It's too loud there. Was the theme park there before or after you decided to move in next door to a theme park?
No sympathy for you. None.
If your observance is that low, you have no sympathy for me. Anyways, they're turning the prison into the plot of land that the prison sits on. They're turning it into a 15-minute city.
Puts a whole new spin on the term gated community.
Yes.
Or concentration camp.
The latest plans for The Point, as they've named the soon-to-be vacated Draper site of the Utah State Prison, aim to make it a regional model for mixing green spaces and trails with lots of housing, office towers, and retail outlets in a way that lures new residents to the area and fosters widespread economic development.
I love how the mock-up they have for it is like all green trees and grass, and then everything around the area is like dead.
Yeah, that's definitely how it would be in real life. It would be so well maintained.
Like even the neighborhood that's barely pictured off to the sides, it's already there. There's like a few trees.
Yeah.
And they're not that green.
Yep.
Yeah.
Approved on, let's see, that was approved
Very
back in
dystopian.
August. By Point of the Mountain State Land Authority. The new block-by-block framework for those 605 or so acres also calls for the point to be environmentally sustainable for generations to come, deploying a pedestrian-friendly layout, rapid transit buses, and robotic vehicles to slash car usage, and giving a major ecological lift to portions of the adjacent Jordan River. The Jordan River is like one of the nastiest rivers, and that's not because it has pollutants in it, but because it's just full of mud.
Okay, I'll buy that.
Because I know that because they basically demolished any and all production that was near the lake in Utah County that would have been dumping stuff into the lake, but that doesn't exist anymore, so still muddy and dirty. Estimates are the point eventually would be home to roughly 14,800 residents.
The funniest thing is,
holy crap.
The frickin' they're like a mile away from the Jordan River. Like their closest edge is like a mile away from the Jordan River.
Yeah, they're a little ways. But yeah, so that little 605 acres would house more people than the entire city of Bluffdale has.
Yeah. Oh, and that neighborhood across the street is Bluffdale, by the way.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's literally the border of Bluffdale and Draper.
Oh yeah, the Porter Rockwell or whatever that is.
146th.
Yeah.
So it goes 146th up to literally like the edge of the prison where the prison sits right now, and then it jogs up and goes like down and then cuts across to the railroad tracks in Bangor, like where Bangor Highway and the railroad tracks intersect is where the line comes across.
Yes, I am very well aware of that because a Draper cop pulled me over in Bluffdale for speeding at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Whoa.
And gave me a ticket.
Yeah.
Anyway. So yeah, the massive project also is expected to create tens of thousands of higher paying jobs and trigger technological innovation.
Again, looks good on paper.
It looks amazing on paper.
Looks fantastic.
I'm not going to
on
lie. It looks really great, but this reminds me way too much of, I call it the Truman Show out in South Jordan, whatever it's called. The Kennecott place that sponsored it. I can't remember what it's called.
I don't remember what it's called either.
But yeah, it's just this. This is like the ideal thing where, look, you got parks everywhere. There's grass on the roofs of the buildings. It's just fantastic. It's dumb. It's dumb. Why? Where are
Daybreak?
Daybreak. Thank you. I call it the Truman Show because it's perfect. It's a perfect little community.
Yeah, my brother and niece live there.
They have really high HOAs over there.
Oh, so high.
Yeah. If your brother and niece didn't live there, would you ever visit?
Oh, hell no.
Yeah. Daybreak. No. The only time I visit Daybreak is when I accidentally get off on an exit that passes through Daybreak.
Yeah. They're building a baseball stadium over there.
Good for them.
Yeah, it's going to be literally like right across the street from my niece's house.
Spoiler alert! Like in one of my segments, I'm convinced one of the next conspiracy theories that I'm digging into is I'm convinced that they're raising the housing price, like these new world order people, World Economic Forum people. Those sorts of people are literally raising the housing prices to lure younger generations into smart cities like this.
Oh yeah,
so that
for sure.
Younger generation,
because it's cheaper to live in this tiny condo than it is to live
and I mean, look at all
house.
the conveniences. Like you can walk to work, you'll get your exercise, but also if you want to leave, you need the proper documentation and you need to be in social good standing and et cetera, et cetera.
There are so many issues with this idea. So many. The biggest one being you are never going to squeeze everything that somebody in Utah wants into that area.
No.
You're never going to do it.
Nah.
Which means they're always going to have to travel.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of this neighborhood is to do away with cars. There's a lot of bike trails. There's a lot of walking trails. There's no place to park.
Look at that render.
There's no place to have a car.
There is parking. They have parking garages at the edge of the place.
Yeah, at the edge, and there's a handful of parking lots right on the one side.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's all they've got for parking. Their house designs, it sounds like, are not going to have garages. They call it the one-car neighborhood. Like, nobody that lives in Utah for being in Utah is going to want to live there. Because what are you going to stay in that like 3 mile radius for your entire life?
Is Draper going to hire employees to get in to drive 4x4s or whatever, little ATVs or quads or side-by-sides or whatever to plow all the sidewalks so people can actually walk around and get to work when it snows?
Oh, they're going to have to.
Yeah, presumably.
Yeah. Daybreak does.
Yeah. So that
Daybreak hires people with four-wheelers and stuff to go plow all their walking trails and stuff.
Right. So that means that building this area, well, it creates new jobs. Those jobs have to be paid somehow. And how does a city get money to pay for jobs that really shouldn't be needed? Taxes.
Yep.
Either that or they're going to turn it over to an HOA. Then you're going to have ridiculous HOA fees here.
Yeah, because that's so much better.
Yeah.
Well, the HOA people will get to vote. No, they won't.
Well, and it just it's it's absolutely insane to think that you can fit everything that anyone will ever need into this little area. I mean, even just talking like restaurant and shopping, like you're not going to fit every store that anybody could possibly want to visit in there.
Yeah.
Like that entire area could be stores, and you might fit everything that one or two people wants in that size of an area.
Uh-huh.
Because you're talking, at that point, you're talking grocery stores, you're talking restaurants, you're talking movie theaters.
Right now, Utah actually has an extremely diverse restaurant, fast food thing.
I've driven all the way to Bountiful for Mexican and Chinese food before because the best restaurants I know are up there.
Right.
Yep.
You know?
And just outside of that, because of Utah's culture with the LDS Church, you have missionaries that go all over the world and all over the country. Then they come back to Utah and they love the food that they experience there, so they bring that food here.
Oh yeah,
so that's
why happens all the time.
That's why when you look at maps of places like Zaxby's or whatever, they're dotted all over the East Coast and the Mid East
and South,
and then Utah.
That happens a lot. There's a lot of restaurants like that.
So you have things like that where, like Mike said, you'll have some good stuff there, I'm sure, but Raising Cane's is the closest. Raising Cane's is out in Harriman. I'm gonna go to Raising Cane's. Oh, that's outside your 15-minute city. Well, we're not actually doing that part of the 15-minute city. Oh, okay. You're just building the framework for it, but you're not actually doing it.
Yeah. Anyway. No, so that's horrifying. I again, the potential for controlling people within these so-called smart cities is terrifying. And I'll be the first to admit that some of the conveniences that they tout look very appealing. I would love to be able to walk to work within, 15 minutes or whatever.
Sure. But I still wouldn't be able to because my work is 5 miles up the road once I get outside of that neighborhood.
Sure.
Well, you can hop on a bus.
Because I'm not going to work at any of the places they have in there. Like, that's assuming that people are going to move there and then get a job there.
It would
or get a job there
severely
and move
limit
there.
your options by living in that 15-minute city.
That's something that you bring up a good point there, Mike, because a lot of the jobs that they're going to try to bring in are mostly tech jobs, IT jobs.
Yeah.
And that's a mistake that what was the governor before Herbert?
I don't know.
I can't remember his name.
Huntsman?
Yes.
That was a good guess. I mean, you had like a 50-50 shot between Huntsman and like whatever 10 other names.
I thought I didn't know, but then it just came to me.
I think it's Huntsman, yes.
I'm pretty sure it was Huntsman.
But he had this big push. So Utah high schools used to have a lot more blue-collar things in their tech things, but now it's mostly just IT-related or nursing, medical. And Huntsman had a big deal to do with that because he had this big idea that Utah's going to be the next big place for tech. It's going to be the next big place for tech. That's why we have the Silicon Slopes, is because Huntsman was a big pusher for that.
That's worked so well.
Intel came to Utah because of this big push, said, hey, we like the idea that you have here of having this big push for tech and stuff like that. We'd like to build a big Intel facility here. Huntsman said, great, let's give you a tour of all this stuff that we got going and the plans that we have. At the end of it all, Intel said, what's your manufacturing plans? And Governor Huntsman's, what do you mean manufacturing plans? Your tech, your computer stuff. Is yes, we need someone to make the computer stuff. What's your plans for us to be able to have the material we need to make the computer stuff? Oh, we don't have anything like that. We need machinists. We need mining. We need. We don't have any of that. Intel said, okay, sorry, bye. Yeah. So because of that stupid decision that gave him what he wanted, he actually made Utah lose out on a ton of revenue and a ton of jobs because Intel was like, you don't have everything that we need, even though you're looking exactly for us and doing everything exactly for us except for our supply. This little city is the same thing. There, oh, look at all this wonderful tech IT stuff. Okay, what about the blue collar guy? What about the blue collar guy? What's he gonna? Oh, he can mow the lawns. No. Who's gonna build the computers for those IT jobs? Who's gonna make the? Where's the plumber going to work? Where's his base of operations for the plumber that's going to be needed to be called in to all the mistakes? The electrician, all those things. Yeah. That's what's going to happen with that place.
Anyway.
Yeah. So that 600 acres. I believe it's 600. Is it 600?
605.
605. 600 acres. That's 0.9 square miles.
And they're going to fit 14,000 people on that.
Yeah.
The Earth is overpopulated.
0.9 square miles. So my neighborhood Ridley's over there is half a mile away.
Uh-huh.
Do you know how many times I've walked there?
Once. Twice. I was half right.
Twice. Mostly because the baby was, upset, and so we just took her for a walk and ended up at Ridley's.
That's fair.
I usually drive there because half a mile is too far for me.
That's true.
To waste time walking.
Completely.
I've got other shit
yes.
to do. Just saying. Like, time is important, man. Like, oh, you can walk anywhere within 10 minutes. Dude, I don't have 10 minutes to walk somewhere.
Uh-huh.
I have like 2 minutes.
Well, you can listen to something on your phone while you walk.
I can listen to something on my phone while I drive, too.
I can listen to something on my phone while I do everything else that I'm wanting to do.
Seriously. I hope it works out for him. I really do. Mostly because it's here in Utah, and economic success is an economic success. It doesn't matter.
Sounds like a fish hook to me.
I feel like give this 15 years, and that neighborhood is going to be one of the most hated neighborhoods in Utah.
Daybreak 2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would take that bet.
Yeah, because like I said, who goes to Daybreak intentionally?
People that live there.
Unless you live there.
Oh, my brother and my niece love it there.
Good for them.
I don't understand why, but they love it there.
Because they don't live somewhere else.
I do not have an opinion on Daybreak. I don't know enough about it. Okay, so those are all the articles that I found interesting. Any others we want to dig up?
I think that was a pretty good cover of things.
I think that was great.
So, I have some exit questions, if you will.
Oh, good. This is my exit interview. I get to leave now. That's how this works, right? You ask me exit questions and then I never come back?
My feeling on exit interviews is you don't get one.
No,
because if you're quitting a job, would you do an exit interview? No. Well, why not? I'm quitting. What more information do you need?
I did one in my last job. I got paid hourly. That's why I did it.
So,
I mean, that's fair.
Some questions, some of which are related, one of which is not. Let's do this one first. So I'm pulling this from a group text that I'm in. Why is nothing being done to bring justice to those in power who we know lied? Such as Fauci and others. And with, if you paid attention to Tucker Carlson's stuff, we found out that the QAnon shaman actually should not be in jail at all for the last 4 years.
That was that was shot. I could go on that. I was
escorted by police into the Senate chamber.
That was entrapment. If what he was doing was against the law and the officers were just kind of leading him, giving him a little tour, and then they're like, oh, by the way, what you did was horribly illegal.
The officers didn't do that. It was after the fact that they went after him. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, why is nothing being done to bring this is a question that was asked in the group by one of the people in the group to being done to bring justice to those in power who we know lied. Especially to Congress.
That's the question?
That's the question.
I have a button for this question.
More or less.
I mean, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a second button for this question if you need clarification.
See, I belong to a certain secret society. I don't believe I gotta mention its name.
Have you seen that movie, Keith?
Nope.
Oh, brother, where art thou?
Oh.
Needs to be on your list if you haven't seen it.
I
if you don't remember it, you need to watch it again.
Fair. That's fair.
Is that the one with John Goodman in it?
Yes.
Okay, maybe I have seen it.
He's the
but it was like a long time ago.
Yeah. My response to them was along the lines of, currently, even if Republicans had control of the House and the Senate, and they had a spine to actually follow through with some of this stuff as a whole body, they have to present to the Attorney General a reason why someone needs to be indicted and brought in for questioning and prosecuted. The current Attorney General is struggling. He can put out resources, all kinds of resources, to find Christians praying in front of abortion clinics and parents questioning school board members at school board meetings and locking away political prisoners. They got all kinds of resources and all kinds of ability to find, intimidate, and in the case that we just learned from Tucker Carlson, entrap people. Also the Whitmer kidnapping. They got all kinds of resources for that. But the people that are firebombing churches and pregnancy centers and things like that, we can't find them because it's dark. It's dark. So Congress,
because they were wearing masks, wasn't it?
Because even if Congress, like I said, has a spine and they're Republicans and they're all in lockstep of prosecuting Fauci and whoever else, they have to deliver this to Merrick Garland, who is 100% in the back pocket of progressivism.
Yeah.
Which means nothing would come of it.
Like I said.
So the question is, why is there that disconnect where there are powerful people that are just not being prosecuted, and then there are less not so powerful people that are getting the book thrown at them?
And even books that don't exist thrown at them, yes.
Yeah. So that's the question.
Basically.
So I think that I think there's like the obvious cause and then there's the root cause. And I would talk about both of those. So I would say the obvious cause is like, okay, well, they're powerful people and they want to promote those that are useful towards their agenda. And so therefore they prosecute people that go against the agenda, especially those that are less powerful, because they don't have the means to push back against it, and they turn a blind eye, even blatantly, against those that are useful for the agenda.
I'm being judged.
Anyway, like that's just corruption 101. I mean, that's very obvious. Selective enforcement of the law, I think, as it becomes more widespread, like that's when the country becomes less prosperous, because you can't trust the legal system or those that enforce the law.
It's not even a two-tiered system anymore.
Exactly.
It's
and the United States, I would argue that that's why the United States was such a prosperous country for so long. And I mean, we're certainly on the decline as of right now.
Yes.
Is because the United States, at least it used to be, very concerned with justice. Like if you signed a contract, you could be relatively certain that it would be enforced, and that if someone broke the law against you, you could go after them in court and so forth. And to a degree, that's still the case, but on these high-profile, politically charged cases, not so much.
I think Lois Lerner was the tipping point.
What was that one?
Lois Lerner was the IRS lady that was specifically slapping tax things on like the Tea Party and other organizations like that, conservative organizations. She was blatantly violating tax code and U.S. law to basically hammer these organizations down so much that they had no money to actually do anything.
Oh, was that under Obama?
That was under Obama.
Yeah,
yes.
That's where he used the IRS to go after conservative.
And Lois Lerner was the face of that.
Right.
And she was caught blatantly lying to Congress in her testimony.
And what were the consequences?
Nothing. Because the Attorney General of the United States, was it Eric Holder at the time? I don't see any reason why we need to go after that. Let's see, right here in the Constitution. Lying to Congress. Anyone? No? Bueller? Yeah. I think that set a precedent where now you have this, whenever they do have investigations and stuff, and they bring witnesses on, you just have all this stonewalling where, I can't remember if we talked about it last week or not. The lady that on her Twitter, she's going to be the archivist for Congress, and she's being asked about her public Twitter posts because she said there's nothing on her Twitter except for tweets about her dog and concerts and recipes or something like that, and sports. That's all she has. And right before she went to testify to Congress, she blocked all tweets. But I think it was Senator Hawley already printed off some of her public tweets and was asking her about it. You said your tweets are only about your dog and concerts and blah, blah, blah. So what about this tweet that says all Republicans are evil and blah, blah, or whatever it is that she said? My Twitter profile is in my private purview. Okay, but this was publicly tweeted and you said it's not. My personal Twitter profile is in my personal purview. That's all she said to him. Said that same thing over and over and over again to every question he asked. So she lied to Congress. Nothing. And she's going to be the one that keeps track of all the history of Congress.
Oh, terrific. Anyway, so yeah, there's the blatant corruption reason. People just go after what is in their own interests or the ideology that they're pushing or whatever. And then I would say there's the deeper reason, and I would say that because America had this at the root for such a long time, I would argue that that's one of the reasons we became such a great country. Is like at the root, we believe that we're accountable to God. Like that's why when we take the oaths, we put our hand on the Bible, because like if we don't live up to these oaths, someday we will be accountable towards God. And now we have presidents of the United States that take that oath and are blatantly violating that oath and are blatantly going against the religion that they profess to be part of.
Right.
Specifically talking about Joe Biden and how he's in favor of abortion, which is clearly against his religion.
Yes.
Yet he promotes it anyway. And also he's blatantly going against the Constitution. And I could go on about that, but I'll refrain.
I'm not one to judge a man.
He took an oath to protect the Constitution. He's blatantly violating it. Something tells me that he doesn't actually believe that someday he'll be accountable to God.
No.
And I think that for a long time, government officials in the United States got that right, or at least a good majority, or at least enough of them to uphold order in the society. But I don't think that's the case anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think that because of that, I mean, we talked about that last week, the ideology of humanism, which is like a secular moral code, they literally believe that it's okay to lie as long as you achieve the ends that they are ideologically committed to. And so I think that is why we're having this kind of corruption, whereas before it was, I mean, I'm certain that, corruption has existed in all periods of the United States, but it's much more embedded and much more rampant now compared to in past decades and generations.
Right.
Yep.
We'll end with this question here. And it's more of a statement and then your reaction and comments on it. This was also from this group text that I'm in. They have a coworker that said, conservatives are okay when schools get shot up with guns, but they lose their minds when a drag queen shows up.
What? Who? What? I take it they listen to the mainstream media.
I think it stems...
We're okay with school shootings, but we lose our minds when What?
Yes. A critical thinker right there. They lose their minds when a drag queen shows up, but they're fine. The school's getting shot.
You know what your answer to to school shootings is? Your answer is take away my gun. You know what my answer is to school shootings? My answer is shoot the person that started the shooting and then don't ever mention his name.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Which of us is harsher?
And also broadcast that they will be shot on site.
Yes.
Like they do in
my answer is there was never a mass shooting at Hogwarts.
Oh, because everyone has wands.
Because literally everyone had a wand.
Why are there no mass spellings in Hogwarts? Because everyone's armed?
You've been playing too much Hogwarts Legacy, Mike.
I actually watched a video of a kid trying to do a mass shooting in Hogwarts, and every teacher of the entire school comes out of the woodwork and just murders the kid.
Yeah,
we could learn a lot from
just
that video
destroys
game.
him.
Yeah, that's a mod that someone did. But
yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But it's true though. If everybody in the school was armed, an armed society is a polite society. Mm-hmm. When my brother was growing up, every single kid in his school had a gun in the window of his truck. Every single one of them. You know how many mass shootings they had at his school?
At least
None.
a dozen.
0.
Oh, I was close.
They had 0. He used a shotgun in his speech class. What the hell?
Well, these are different times. Yes, they are.
Yes, they are, because you've taken all those things away.
Yep.
And it's getting worse. How do you not see that you have started taking those things away and it's gotten worse?
Well, gun ownership has actually gone up over time.
Okay. But are schools still a gun-free zone?
This is
in
one of the
most
points
states?
that... What's his stupid face? He did a special on it. Gosh dang it, what's his name? We played a clip of him last week, the Hershey...
Jon Stewart?
Jon Stewart. He did a special on this, special interview, and it was some state rep from Arkansas or something. And that's one of the things he said is, if more guns is the answer, why are there more crimes and stuff happening with guns when there's more guns in the country? And I didn't listen to the whole thing because I was 2 minutes in and I lost my mind. But the guy was stumbling over the response, and Mike was on the right path there with, you took the guns away from schools and then you broadcast to the world that there is nobody armed in this building.
Seriously, though. Yeah, more guns are getting bought because everybody's afraid you're going to actually take away their guns. So they're arming their house. They're arming their place of business.
We don't want to take away your guns. We just want to take away your other rights. Yes, you're not taking my other rights because
I have guns. Exactly.
By the way, what was the base philosophical question? Now we're just talking about gun control. I kind of forgot.
Conservatives are okay when schools get shot up, but they lose their minds when a drag queen shows up.
It basically was gun control.
Okay, so I think the difference here is every mass shooting is obviously a tragedy or whatever, and every time we try to pinpoint a cause of it, we realize that trying to figure out the cause of this is one of the most difficult social science questions out there. And yeah, I'm open to suggestions on how we can reduce things. One thing I can say is that the solutions that you've been proposing will not work and have not worked. Take Chicago as an example. They have some of the most,
that's because
most gun laws in the country, and yet they have the worst shootings.
Well, that's because Indiana doesn't have as strict laws as Chicago does in Illinois.
Oh, so you're saying if we make our laws more like Chicago, that'll reduce...
Because it's still legal there to purchase a firearm under the age of 18.
Anyway, so
wait. No, it's not. Shut the fuck up.
So anyway, the point is obviously we are not okay with these school shootings that are happening, and we want to reduce them. Some ideas that we've had are things like arming, teachers, and getting officers that are armed,
and it's not even
forth.
And it's not
I'm
even
not saying those are perfect solutions. I'm just saying we are putting forth solutions, but the left is against them for one, and.
We don't want to try. We don't want to try your idea. We want to keep trying what we've been failing at.
Yeah, literally, that's what they're doing.
No, seriously. And then contrasting that with the drag queen story hour, we know where this leads, and it's nowhere good. So of course we want to stop those things.
It's an apples and oranges comparison. Until you actually dig into the thing. When do school shootings disappear from the news cycle?
When it's done by a minority or just basically a story that is not useful to the narrative.
As soon as the manifesto is found and published,
leftist,
the story disappears.
Yeah.
Because
like that dude that
99% of the time they find that manifesto, there's some progressive freak that's wrapped up in that ideology of humanism, basically.
Nihilism. I would call it more nihilism.
Nihilism.
But yeah.
Which is spawned by humanism or spawns humanism, either
Secularism. Yeah, it's spawned by secularism.
Got
to get your isms straight, Trevor.
It's just too many. So they find that out. They find out, oh, this guy was a Bernie supporter. Oh, this guy endorses the same ideas that Ocasio-Cortez keeps pushing. Oh, this guy
believes he's an anti-racist, which means he's just racist against a different race.
Right. Or like you said, oh, turns out he's actually a black kid. Let's kill the story. Story's done. Sorry.
Story's done. Nope.
Sorry.
Nope.
But either way, it breaks down to mental instability. They're mentally lost.
Or ideologically lost.
Which can also just lead to, if you have no ideology that's grounded in something factual and true, you're going to lose your mind.
Yep.
And then this is where the apples to apples is. Drag screen story hour. What is that? That's mentally insane.
It is.
So there's your apples to apples comparison for these two things. And if the kid was going for as far as how deadly it is, the latest survey research, whatever, over 50% of kids that identify as trans are committing suicide.
Yeah.
Compare that to the death rate of firearms in schools. I don't think they're the same rate.
Oh, so you're making a similar comparison.
Yes.
Is you're like, leftists don't bat an eye when 50% of trans kids commit suicide, but yet they're totally fine with, I don't know, drag queen story hour, which effectively
feeds that.
Yeah, which is effectively recruiting new members into what appears to be a suicide cult.
Yeah. Amazing what a little bit of critical thinking can get you.
Anyway.
That's how Thomas Sowell disproved minimum wage. So
hold on. I want to clarify what I said about the suicide cult thing. Like, I will say that, like, suicide is also another one of those complicated social issues.
Yes.
You know, it's difficult to determine what causes it. So I'm not saying causation, but gosh darn it, the correlation is there.
Yes.
And like, we didn't, like, before we were so affirming of the transgender ideology or whatever, we didn't have tons of people committing suicide. In fact, the suicide rate continues to go up as we affirm these different ideologies that,
Right.
in my opinion, are just mental illnesses, is what they are.
I don't understand why when I keep giving the alcoholic more alcohol, he becomes more alcoholic and ends up in a deeper, sadder place. I don't get why that keeps happening. Oh, sorry, you were talking about.
But yeah, I definitely agree that, like, doing more affirming of the thing that is has a huge correlation with suicide is probably not the best way to prevent suicide.
Negative neutron. Yep.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Did I cut you off there, Mike?
no, you're good.
Okay, cool.
You're good. I was making an aside because he mentioned logical thinking, and that's Thomas Sowell. I don't know if you know much about his
Of
his
course
story.
I do. I love him.
So Thomas Sowell was an avid Marxist all growing up and through college. He attended an economy class with Friedman as the teacher.
Right.
And he left the class still a Marxist. And he became a capitalist when he went to work for the government.
The irony.
Literally, he went to work for the government in the labor whatever division, dealing with minimum wage and stuff like that. And he says that the point where it really hit him that all of these things were wrong, that they don't work, was when he was looking at all the data for the effects of minimum wage, and he thought this stuff, there's no actual answer here as to whether or not this is effective. And he asked a question, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head right now, but he asked a question about if we were to track this, and this, essentially, we could prove this about the minimum wage. And everybody in his division was like, oh shit, he figured it out. He's going to lose us all our jobs because they're going to close down the division because this is awful. This doesn't work. And that's when he realized that it was all a game. It was all a scam. And that none of it works.
It was almost like it was designed to keep poor people poor.
Yeah, pretty much.
Huh.
Yeah, really interesting story. If you haven't ever looked at Thomas Sowell's work or anything about Thomas Sowell, you should go look.
I believe there's a documentary that's fairly new.
There's a few of them. There's one that's pretty new. It's on Amazon Prime right now. I think it's just called Thomas Sowell. But it's done by a journalist that's followed his life for the journalist's entire life. Really, really neat documentary. It was really, really good. It includes snippets of several interviews that Sowell's done throughout the years and different TV appearances and things that he's been on. A really great show. If you get a chance, go watch it.
Nice.
2021, Thomas Sowell, Common Sense in a Senseless World.
That's the one. Yep.
Common sense
in a senseless world.
Wow.
The craziest thing to me is like looking at Friedman and Sowell, like they've been saying since the 70s.
Oh, Carter?
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
You know, they've been saying since the 70s that all this stuff was going to happen, that the stuff that they've been implementing since back then was going to lead to exactly where we're at right now.
And what do you know?
What do you know? They were right on literally everything.
So they warned us about all this stuff while Carter was president, and now we have a president who's saying "hold my beer" to Carter's status as the worst president.
Yeah. So 1984 was off by about 40 years.
It's only a matter of time before all works of fiction become reality.
Yep. Make 1984 fiction again.
Yes.
Love it.
And leave the animals on the farm.
Leave the animals on the farm. For real, though.
Yes.
Anyway,
That's it.
that's it.
That's
That's
it.
all we got.
I'm sorry, but you've thrown off the Emperor's groove.
Like, subscribe, do all the things and the sharing, the living. And
Let's find an outro that fits the episode.
Thanks, Satan.
It's subtle action.
Bye! Big gulps, eh?
big gulps.
Well, see you later.
Super big gulps, even. I think that's what the biggest one's called. I don't know. It's been a minute.
Super big gulps.
Super big gulps.
Super big gulps with straws.
And clappity clap.
He's got
There
the
it
clap
is.
and he's giving it to you.
And everyone missed it.
Of course they did. I'm the funny one.
I'm the funny one.
And we've missed you.
I'm too poor to be the money anymore.
Why would you say something
So now I'm the comedy.
Why would you say something so bold yet so controversial?
Who says it's controversial?
I'm hilarious. Change your mind.
That is correct, sir. That is correct.
Do I need to
Correct as usual, King Friday.
do I need to humble you already with your own words?
Put it away. Put it away. Put it away.
When faced with my own humanity,
What
I'm
I
left
said
wanting.
wasn't wrong. It was just slightly embarrassing.
I need to go back and get that clip, that soundbite of you. First time hearing that back is when faced with my own humanity, I'm left wanting.
That is correct. Yes.
Use
on
that
both
for the next, use that for the next segment type thing that we do.
When faced with my own humanism.
I am left wanting.
Wait. I know you all missed me.
So much.
We did.
Good. You should.
Keith did a good job of pressing one button in the middle of the thing, and
pushed at least 3.
he
At
delivered.
least 3.
I only got one of them wrong.
Whoa, hold on a second. Okay, that's the extension.
Did you? Could you not hear me?
No, I was thinking that the USB cable was really tight, but it wasn't the USB. It was the other plug over there.
Other plug.
It was his plug.
Okay. So y'all
His-
can hear me
his
just
plug.
fine then.
Yeah, I hear you just fine.
Okay.
I hear you good.
In the hood.
All good in the hood. Turn myself up a little bit so I can hear
Yourself.
better. Yep, there we go. Mucho better. Yes, I did that on purpose. Stop staring at me. Why is there a porg popping up over my...
It's staring at you. It's the porg of judgment.
The porg of judgment. Yes! Toss it over here. My new little friend.
Porg of judgment.
He has now been deemed the porg of judgment. And he's going to get thrown at people that I am judging harshly.
Oh, good. The throwings will continue until morale improves.
Things will continue until morale improves. Hey, we can't keep going on the jokes without
That's just from
in
the
the
sequel
show.
trilogy, isn't it?
Well, it's technically still in the show. It's just the bonus stuff at the end of the show.
Trying to make sure I know what that stuffed plushie is from.
It's from the new ones, and it's the only good thing that came out of the new ones. Yes. The fact that I have a porg.
That and the banter between Chewie and Han Solo with how powerful Chewie's bowcaster actually is.
That was pretty good, yes.
I've only seen each of the sequel trilogy movies one time.
And that's
so
all you need to see.
I don't recall very
And
much of them.
Porgs are also very much like Ewoks in the essence of I hope that they someday make a Star Wars game where you're allowed to kick them.
I mean, Yeah.
And they made a trophy on the PlayStation that you got for kicking Ewoks. It was awesome.
Which game?
Force Unleashed 2, I believe.
Okay.
There's an extra mission at the end where you got to go to, if you did the evil route and replaced Darth Vader, you got to go to Endor and kill everyone. So you got to kill Chewie, you got to kill Han, you got to kill Leia, and you got to kick the Ewoks. And punting the Ewoks through the trees.
Yes.
to the little applause that echoed in my mind every time was
I remember
glorious.
That now. Yes.
Yes.
In Battlefront 2, there was the good one, not the new one.
That's so weird how they like reboot these classic series.
In Battlefront 2, there was a couple of things you could do where you could do heroes versus villains on Mos Eisley. You could do on Hoth, you could do Wampas versus rebels. So you could play as a Wampa.
That's fun.
And then on Endor, it was the Empire versus the Ewoks. So you could run around as an Ewok throwing rocks and stuff at the troops. And then you had to do that to knock them down so you could then use your spear and just stab them to death on the ground.
That's the only way that savages can get by. Yes.
That was my childhood.
It was great.
And I turned out fine.
It was great. It was wonderful even.
Anyway.
So yeah, that's the story behind the Porg. You're welcome.
And so that was our segment for the week.
This After Hours brought to you by Straws. Because why not?
Ooh, leftover pie.
Ooh, leftover pie.
That could be the bonus segments.
Leftover pie. Yes. Yes. We need to come up with a little thing to play for it. That'd be great.
Is it good? Maybe.
Maybe not. Who
how
knows?
old is that pie? Was it good to begin with?
It's like a warm apple pie. Only the truly depraved and most of my friends will get that reference.
I did not get that reference.
That's probably for the best. It's okay. I don't get it, but I have an inkling of where that goes based off of the people I know that he knows.
Stifler. Anyway. Well, shall we begin then?
Yes. I think it's a good time to start.
It's a good time to start.
Now that we're all warmed up from pie.
After my reference, that landed so badly.
You're welcome.
Wow.
Just contributing to the inside joke that I'm not a part of.
Wow. Close enough.